to look back at the last Forge FC contest.
Simply stunning stuff! And finally, their goal!
Here is Match and Review.
My word, what a rocket!
With Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network.
Hello, Forge fans. What a match. So exciting. I forgot to turn my mic on for the first few seconds of the broadcast. Your final score from Tim Hortons Field here in Hamilton, Forge FC 3, Pacific FC 1. 3 goals, 3 points, a massive, colossal, I don't throw in any adjective you want. They're all fitting. Just a gigantic effort, performance, result. 3 much needed points for a club who was not only looking to just get better results at home, but find sole possession of second place, that all important second spot, which just it means so much come playoff time. We'll get into that. This game, it was a remark. I mean, there's so much to talk about. Let's just we'll go to the top here. Forge FC coming out in their orange, Pacific all white, which you know I love, the darks versus all white uniforms. We get so few of them in the CPL. Always happy to see them. Forge came out with a very different look for a couple of reasons. The main one being just player availability. Let's just say Forge, they've been unlucky with some players who were unavailable on the back end of this one. Dominic Samuel not available. Malik Oluwabi-Bellewu not available. Garvin Matusala not available. 3 defenders. And because of that, Forge had to get a little creative with their back line. And they did, for the most part. Now, depending how you looked at it, Forge was either playing with 3 defenders or 5. Essentially, they're playing with 3 center backs, which we never, ever see with Forge. But what happened was Malcolm Duncan, young guy, still gaining experience at this level, was kind of thrust into that center back group. And because of that, Forge giving him a little, just, making things a little easier for him by throwing him into a combination of Mandrakar James, Ashton Yodi-Janssen, 2 veteran defenders. You throw Malcolm Duncan in there. And there's your 3-man group in this one. Kwesi Poku, Razard Rama playing fullback / wingback, depending on what, Forge's formations are always just, they're formations in theory, but once the ball's kicked and depending who has possession and where the ball is, you see a lot of changes in movement. In the middle, Kyle Becker, Hojab Rapport, and up top, Pacius, Campbell, Badi, Banga. So some unique looks for Forge in this one. And by doing this, and what I liked about this formation, when you have those 3 center backs, your fullbacks have a lot more flexibility in what they're able to do as fullbacks and play a little more on the front foot, play a little more advanced, focus a little more on the attack. And those 2 fullbacks played a huge role in this win. In fact, this win doesn't happen without Rama, without Poku, and the plays they made on the attacking side of the ball that they perhaps wouldn't have been able to make had they had to play back more to help defensively. So 3 center backs gives you that flexibility. And by the way, welcome back, Kwesi Poku. The suspension after the red card for the last couple of games. And again, it just allows so much more flexibility just with him alone and how they attack because of how dynamic Poku is. He can beat you one-on-one with his pace and long strides. He can create with his crosses. He can win duels with his size and his strength. Just such a weapon and so valuable for so many different reasons. Also, it doesn't hurt at all the U21 minutes, which Forge still has to hit 2,000. Coming into this match, Forge needed 260 more over the last 3 matches, which is certainly attainable. I mean, as long as you have a U21 player, at least one playing 90 minutes for the next 3 matches. You're in the clear, and Forge went above and beyond in this one for various reasons. First half, ball kicks off. I was not a fan of Forge's start in this one. It was early, but you saw some things that have crept into. Here's the thing: we've seen these matchups with Forge where there are huge playoff-like implications and these kind of not totally must-win, but kind of must-win games. And we saw a lot of draws, right? 0-0, 1-1. Forge maybe playing conservative, not wanting to make a mistake. Not total, maybe conservative is the wrong word, but they didn't want to make any mistakes. And they wanted to at least preserve points in those matches. And in this one, Pacific was the aggressor. It was the opening minutes, mind you. It was early, but still, you look kind of for early signs in the first few minutes. And Pacific had their engines going. In fact, very early on, they opened the scoring. 3rd minute, Gennaro Daniels finishes the feed from Manny Aparicio. And it's 1-0 Pacific, very early. Crowd kind of stunned, players kind of stunned. And not what you want in a match like this at home. We know how important the first goal is in this league across the board statistically. But last match for Forge, where they had to battle just from start to finish and grinded out a 3-2 win over Valor last week. I talked about it a lot in that post game. I talked about it in the match day preview. That win against Valor was my favorite win of the year for Forge. And you're thinking 3-2 against Valor. How is that impressive? I mean, didn't you see the 4-0 win over at York? Those dominating wins where you blow teams out, they're great, but you don't learn a lot about your team in those matchups. When everything's going well, you want to see, it's like football. You want to see how the quarterback does down in the 4th quarter when everyone knows he has to pass. How does he respond? In that match, Forge needed goals, and they scored. First of all, they blew a lead. Then they were able to tie it after going down. And then they went ahead late on a free kick. It was just one of those character building wins where things just weren't going right, but they found a way. They dug deep and they got it done. And their big time players were big time players in that one. And those are show me matchup. They're character building matches, and at the perfect time of the year, as we head to the playoffs very shortly. So why am I bringing up that match against Valor? Well, they needed to tap into that character to dig deep in this one, because you go down early and you're stunned. Sometimes it's tough to recover. Not only did Forge recover, they woke up. Maybe they didn't quite start totally on time, but that goal woke them up, because 2 minutes after, Forge responded. How do you respond in the face of adversity? Forge answered the bell again, back-to-back weeks, exactly the signs you are looking for from your club. 5th minute, Forge responded. It actually looked like a missed opportunity at first. Wubas Pasillas had difficulty with a pass that kind of went off the back of his foot as Forge was on their horse going toward the Pacific goal. Pacific actually collected the loose ball, but Kwesi Poku came charging in, won a ground duel. As he does, he swung in an absolute gorgeous ball that was finished with clinical precision by Razart Rama. Both fullbacks, I talked about it earlier, they had a little more free reign this time because they had 3 center backs playing behind them, and so they could think offense a little more often. As such, Poku starts it, Rama finishes it. Fullback, by the way, Rama's first goal as a member of Forge FC. So great moments early, terrifying moments just minutes later, about a third of the way into the half. Malcolm Duncan and Kunle Dadaluke, Duncan and Dadaluke went up for the ball on the far side of where we were sitting in the press box on the Pacific half of the pitch. Neither saw each other, so they couldn't protect themselves, and they collided mid-air. head to head at full speed, it looked horrible. The second you saw it, your heart stopped. I mean, it was that devastating of a collision in real time. And making matters worse, neither player was able to move after. Both were just kind of laying there, motionless. Both players from both sides quickly signaled for stretchers. You had players running toward the ambulance that was parked here, calling for the EMTs. Now, eventually, the ambulance drove onto the pitch. Paramedics tended to the players. A second ambulance was called, so there were 2 ambulances on the pitch and EMTs working on both players. I guess the positive is that both regained consciousness, were put into the back of the ambulance. I heard some rumblings that Duncan was kind of cracking jokes on his way in. That's always good to see. Dada Luke, he had, I don't know if it was his father or his brother, but he had a family member that kind of rushed onto the pitch to see how he was doing. It was just scary moments all around. And the players and coaches were actually sent back to the locker rooms. It was about, I didn't time it, to be honest with you. I kind of asked around, how long do you think of that stoppage was? We settled on around 35 to 40 minutes, the delay. And that included a 10-minute warm-up for both sides. So, like I said, both could be seen moving eventually. Unfortunately, I don't have an update on their condition except for the fact that they're responsive. But with injuries related to the head or neck, we saw neck braces. There's obviously a lot of concern there. So, but I guess all things considered, it's positive that both are responsive and both are being tended to. They are both in hospital. Fingers crossed for a speedy recovery for both. Players with some heavy hearts and distracted minds had to re-enter the pitch, and they had to play a game. So obviously, with the 2 injuries, substitutions had to be made. Amenadum came on for Dedaluk. Sissoko came on for Duncan. And interestingly enough, even with Duncan out, Forge did not change their look defensively. They kept that 3 or 5 defender look, depending where the fullbacks were playing during any given moment. Except this time, Rama slid in and played center back along with Urciuoli, Janssen, and James. Sissoko and Poku manned the fullback positions. And that's not an easy situation for Sissoko to jump into because he is a natural midfielder. Now he's playing fullback, kind of wing back. I mean, I rave about Sissoko. He's one of the hardest working athletes I have ever seen in my entire life. He does everything that's asked of him and more. And it's just always 100%. He never seems to run out of gas. He's just, that motor is always running. And when you're a guy that cares that much, Sissoko cares. I mean, no matter what he's doing, he puts all of his care into it. And it is just impossible to fail when you care that much about what you're doing. And so Sissoko steps in, plays fullback. He and Poku manning the flanks there. Back from the break, Forge came oh so close to taking the lead. Pasillas had a go from inside the area, got a little too much behind it. He hit the bar. This game was much more open than the previous high stakes matches involving Forge, and maybe that early goal from Pacific, in a weird way, it helped. It completely. We've seen these matches against Cavalry, against Ottawa, scoreless draws, very kind of just tense, more conservative than we're used to, like a little bit more, just tiny bit of conservatism that creeps in, and it looks a little different because we're used to seeing Forge on the front foot a lot. But that first goal awoke just everything woke up after that. And this was not one of those tense, everyone afraid to make a mistake, playoff type matchups. Both clubs were going for it. And it was so entertaining to watch just as a fan. And Kwesi Poku, I mean, he is really starting to become a top level player in this league. You know, he just makes everyone around him better. And he just creates so many big chances. 37th minute, Kwesi Poku swings in yet another gorgeous ball with his left foot. This time he finds Badi Banga, who hits the post. By the way, Forge, they lead the league in hitting the woodwork. And I mean, I'm watching this. I go, how that's 2 already just in the first half. But not to worry, because the most efficient goal scorer in the CPL, the leader in goals per minutes played, Wubens Pacius, found the rebound, bounced it in, and just like that, it is 2-1 in favor of Forge FC. And with that, Forge is now able to go into halftime with a lead. Everything, all things considered, all the things that went down in that first half, to go in with a lead, it was, I mean, so much happened in that first half. So much emotion. And Forge has a lead. Halftime stats: expected goals 1.29 for Forge, 0.33 for Pacific. Pacific with the bulk of the possession at 57%. And dangerous tax at halftime in favor of Pacific, 21-10. Some substitutions at half: Gennaro Daniels off, Amon Salouf on. Salouf was part of the 3 keys, the guy Forge wanted to keep an eye on. Instead of being a 90-minute guy, he's been more of a super sub in the second half, but he really creates for Pacific. He's been their most dangerous player all year in terms of big chances created. And he is on now in the second half. So Forge had to at least pay attention to him on the pitch. Again, such a bizarre match. Quick goals, scary injuries. 57th minute, you can add to the just bizarre happenings around this match. A keeper substitution for Forge. Tristan Henry out, Chris Kalongo in, because Henry appeared to suffer a head injury. Didic for Pacific from his own half took an attempt at goal. He tried to chip Henry from a long ways away, and we know Henry likes to play well off of his line. Well, this ball was labeled for the back of the goal. It was going directly in the goal. Henry had to run back like a center fielder, made an unbelievable save, punching the ball over the goal as he leapt into the air. The problem is the landing. He landed, his face scraped the bottom post at the back of the goal there. So he was holding his face and holding his head. So we had a stoppage. We had the trainers out. Another Forge player appearing to suffer a head injury. Now, obviously, this would have looked much different, a little less scary, not to take anything away from the injury. But Henry was able to walk off on his own. Kalongo adding more U21 minutes to Forge's tally. And he actually, I mean, they weren't even actually done with that, because there were more after that. But as if Kalongo wasn't facing enough pressure, coming in cold in a big-time match with playoff implications, he had to face back-to-back corner kicks immediately. And he was cool as a cucumber. That's Kalongo. Always cool, always level, never too high, never too low, just always he has the it's interesting because we see Tristan Henry, right? He's a little more animated. There's a lot of kind of aggression there in the way he plays. He likes being involved. He likes mixing it up. Kalongo's a little more of the subdued, kind of even-keeled guy, and the juxtaposition of the two Forge keepers is always interesting. And one thing I have to point out, Mandrakar James, his leadership at the back of that Forge line, Benny Badibanga and Pacific midfielder Georges Mukum Bilva, well, they were kind of going at each other a little bit. Things were getting tense. Referee warned both, but you could see Badibanga still a little heated and frustrated with some of his interactions with the Pacific midfielder. But Mandrakar James, he took Benny aside. You saw they had a very quick chat, probably just told him something to the effect of, eye on the prize, head in the game, focus on the 3 points. Come on, we need you. We need you. And the message was received. Benny calmed down. No further incidents. The value of having guys like James on your roster. And speaking of leaders, how about these for substitutions? Late in the match, Ruben Spacias comes off. Tristan Borges comes on. Taryn Campbell comes off. Jordan Hamilton comes on. And adding to those U21 minutes, Alessandro Hojab report off. Kadeem Kane enters the match. And in stoppage time, Forge able to seal the deal. Borges found Jordan Hamilton in the area, and he made absolutely no mistake. Hamilton with the goal, Borges with the assist to put Forge up 3-1. And that was your final. Final stats in the match: expected goals 2.41 for Forge, for Pacific 0.82. Ball possession in Pacific's favor at 59%. Makes sense. They were kind of chasing the game there after Forge built up a lead. And yeah, that is your final. But most importantly, we need to look at the table. I talked about the importance of this match. Now, Forge FC now all alone in second place with 2 matches remaining. They are in complete control of their own destiny. 2 wins in a row. They've won 3 of the last 4. They haven't lost. I think it's been 7 matches. Just getting hot at the exact right time. Forge on 42 points, Pacific on 40. Why is second place so important? You know why. Because in this new playoff format, 1 plays 2. The winner goes straight to the final and gets a home. And not only that, they clinch home field in the final. So you just have to win 1 game. If you finish first or second. Now, Cavalry is going to finish first. So Forge, if they finish second, right now, this is how things are looking. They would play at Cavalry to start the playoffs. Winner, straight to the CPL final with a home match. Loser, though, hey, you're still alive. That's the beauty of finishing first or second. You then go to if you lose that match, that's that final play-in match, you go straight to the semifinal. And there, you get a home game and with a chance to win and go to the final. So you get 2 paths to a final. It's better than a bye week, because you actually get to play your way into a final or play your way into the semifinal and then get another crack at that team you lost to in the final. So yeah, important. These 3 points were absolutely massive. Forge trending in the exact right direction you're looking for. The goal differential looks nice now at +9. Home record beefed up after they weren't getting the results they wanted to at home. At the end of the day, this is everything you could possibly ask for if you are a Forge FC fan. We can revisit those 3 keys to the match. Number 1 was Stymie Saloof. I honestly didn't notice him at all. Amon Saloof, 22-year-old left-footed Dutch attacker. He's just their most productive chance creator. Came on to play in the second half, and I didn't even really notice him. So I would say he was stymied. That is a giant check mark for Forge FC and a key one. Key number 2, great shape. This was about Forge FC maintaining their shape defensively, because Pacific is so dangerous when they play on the front foot, and they can score a lot of goals when they're able to play their game. So for Forge, they had to play very disciplined defensively, take their chances, but be mindful of who's around you, who's behind you, and kind of thinking not necessarily that play you're part of, but the next one and the next one. Almost, it's like a chess match out there. And they maintained their shape. They defended well. Pacific scored in the 3rd minute and did not score again. And by the way, I mean, how about Chris Kalongo coming into the situation, middle of the second half, facing 2 straight corners? You're cold. Henry just went down, injured. It's a really important match. And again, just perfectly cool. He did everything right. He had a big save near the end, and he was perfect. Everything you're looking for. Not one of the keys, but certainly worth the shout out. So Stymie Saloof, great shape, 2 huge check marks, and the final third, and this one was key, active bodies in the box. Forge is too much to handle for any team defensively when they get numbers, but it wasn't just about, because the key wasn't bodies in the box. It was active bodies in the box. When you're in the area, it's not enough to just be there. You have to be moving. You have to attack the ball. You have to make the defenders defend, get them running around, get them out of position, create some havoc in there. And they weren't doing that early in that match against Valor, but then they started to, and the goals started to come. In this one, were they ever active? All three of Forge's goals came from inside the area, and they came from deliveries from outside the area. Forge was dangerous today on the attack, on the transition, on the counter. It's because they were getting bodies forward, and those bodies were active in the area. And of course, the players delivering the ball. Poku had a pair, Borges the other. You have guys in this lineup that are not just individual quality, but make everyone around them better. And that's everything you're looking for in a player. If you're a Forge fan, you have to feel really good right now about how things are looking, where they're trending. And there are 2 matches remaining this season. The next one is a week today. An earlier one, 2 p.m., Saturday, September 30th. Forge with a very difficult assignment going into Halifax, the most difficult stadium to play in. And Halifax is very good at home. 13 matches, they have 25 points. That's the second best home record outside of Calvary. So, and we can't, Halifax, they're in a playoff fight themselves. They're currently in 4th place with 36 points. But York is 4 points behind them, so they're not in the clear yet. Halifax can actually clinch a playoff spot in that home match against Forge. So they are going to be motivated. So Forge will, at minimum, be looking for a point. But let's face it, we're at the point now where you have to be thinking 3 because you want to secure that second place. You're only 2 points clear of Pacific, and they have 2 matches remaining. So, yeah, a point is nice, but we're in that territory now where you need 3 because, again, they can control their destiny here. They just have to pick up wins. After Halifax, 1 week later, it's a 4:00 match at home. It'll be the season finale, and it will be against Atletico Ottawa. Forge FC, they've clinched a playoff spot. They clinched it even before this match, but they can clinch second place with 6 more points. If we're doing the math exactly, I'll give you the exact. I'm no mathematician here, but the most amount of points Pacific can get this year are 46. So Forge is at 42. They need. I don't want to get into tiebreakers because I don't have all that information in front of me. So let's just say, to be safe, Forge need 5 points in their final 2 games, and the only way to really get that is to win both. So that is what is in store for them. And that Halifax match you can watch yourself. Of course, I will be here to deliver a live match in review. But after that, it will surely be a pivotal contest on October 7th, the finale, Forge FC home to Atletico Ottawa. Ottawa will likely need points themselves in that one. So it'll be a big one, and you can be there live, ticats.ca/tickets. Also, for those of you who are able to watch the broadcast, I am wearing my Forge FC with the Indigenous logo. That is a sharp logo. It's a sharp shirt, and it's available now through the Forge FC shop. And proceeds go to charity. So all good things, no negatives. No negatives outside of a couple scary injuries tonight. And again, don't have a final update on either of them, but all responsive, all seem to be okay, all things considered. But of course, you can keep tabs through forgefc.ca on the latest condition, and actually keep it locked onto the Forge Audio Network because we have Mackenzie giving you updates almost daily, and you will surely get an update on both Malcolm Duncan and Tristan Henry at some point this week. One final time as the families take over the pitch here at Tim Hortons Field. Forge FC 3, Pacific FC 1. We will talk to you very, very soon.
This has been Match in Review with Anthony Urciuoli on the Forge Audio Network. For the latest on all things Forge FC, subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.